Do you want to capture footage like this with your iPhone? I'm going to walk you through the settings, gear, and techniques that I use to help you start filming better videos starting today. And I'm using the iPhone 16 Pro, so these suggestions will vary iPhone to iPhone, but the core principles remain the same. And this is not only helpful for a creative who wants to maximize their video quality, but also for the casual user who just wants to dial in their settings. So starting with some helpful accessories, this is the Peak Design Travel Tripod. We're going to be using the built-in clamp mounting system, which is awesome for your phone. So filming vertically or horizontally, whichever one you want. This is a great addition to your kit. The next accessory would be some type of gimbal. So this is the DJI Osmo Mobile 6. Snap on your clamp, magnetizes to the gimbal, self-stabilizes, and then you can get those smooth, buttery shots that you want. The next accessory would be some type of audio capture device. So this is the Rode Wireless Micro. Receiver plugs into the bottom, USB-C or Lightning, and then you have two mics. They all charge in this case. You can get black or white, and then there's magnets or a clip on the back to put onto your subject. Another great option would be Polar Pro's lineup of ND filters or mist filters to have some type of filtration in front of your lens to help you with shutter speed or getting a unique look. They've got a variety of options, and I've linked some of those below. Now, if I'm not going to carry a full-size tripod with me, or I'm on the go and I forgot it, I use Moff's invisible tripod stand, which is a MagSafe accessory for the back of your phone. So you can use it with or without the case. I love the case because it provides camera bump protection. It has a cutout for camera control, and it's got a nice grippy texture, so I'm not dropping my phone when I'm getting my shot. They also have a wallet version, which can carry 2 cards in the little sleeve right here, which is awesome. In floating mode, you can film vertically, or you can also film horizontally or watch playback of your last shot. You can also use it in vlogging mode, where you can film on the rear camera. You can also use it for the front camera if you'd like. And in stand mode, you can use that for vertical or horizontal filming, just a different angle. I really like it because it's minimal, it's aesthetic, and I feel like it doesn't add unnecessary bulk while still being very functional. And if you're interested in any of these accessories, I've linked them below. And thank you, Moff, for sponsoring this video. All right, let's dive into the settings. I have clean preview turned off because I want to see all of my settings and all my adjustments. Lock focus and exposure turned on. Single click, and I've set this to the Blackmagic Cam app, which we'll talk more about later in this video. If you don't have a 16 Pro, then don't worry about this because it's irrelevant. Then go into record video. 4K 24 frames per second is the best for cinematic looks. You can also, for social media, do 4K 30 frames per second. Don't film in 1080-30, even if you're exporting in 1080-30. If you film in 4K 30 frames per second, you'll have the most flexibility and the highest quality video. But I've also seen people record in 4K and export in 4K and have great results too. And don't use 4K 60 frames per second unless you're slowing it down to 24. The footage will have 0 motion blur and the file sizes will be huge. So if you have questions about this, just let me know in the comments. Show PAL formats turned off, enhanced stabilization turned on, action mode lower light turned on, HDR video high efficiency turned off, auto FPS is off, lock camera on, and lock white balance is on. Going back out and into record slow-mo, this is at 1080p HD at 120 frames per second. This is what I prefer. If you must do 4K, you can at 120 frames per second. This is a high efficiency format and it's just more compressed. Going back out and into record cinematic, 4K 24 frames per second is the only option because nothing else is more cinematic than 4K 24 frames per second. Going back out and into record sound, I have this set to mono just to keep things simple. But if you want to try the spatial audio and you're not using a wireless microphone, which I would recommend, if you want to try spatial audio, they do have some audio editing features with Audio Mix on the 16 Pro, and they actually have some surprising results. So you can play around with that too. Now going into formats, we have most compatible turned on, and then we want Apple ProRes turned on as well. Now be aware that you will need to have an SSD to record video if it's longer than a couple minutes because the file sizes are absurd. If you are going to use ProRes, make sure log is turned on. If you don't have this option, or you don't want to deal with large file sizes, or you don't know how to color grade, then don't worry about this and you can skip it. I will say though, if you are trying to maximize the video quality of your iPhone and you will be editing it and color grading it, this is what you want to have on. Going back out and into preserve settings, I have all of these turned on except for night mode. This just helps lock in all these adjustments we're making, so when you go back back into your app, it doesn't reset to the default. And then scrolling down to composition, we have grid and level turned on, mirror front camera and view outside the frame turned off, lens correction turned on, and macro control turned on as well. Now we're gonna head into the camera app. So flash should be disabled in the top left corner unless it's nighttime. Then we have exposure compensation. I've always set this to 0.3 or 0.7, just underexpose a little bit. I feel like the iPhone tends to like wash everything out. So make sure it's set to that accordingly. Next, make sure ProRes log is turned on if you're gonna be utilizing that. As you can see here, the max recording time is very low unless you have an SSD attached. This is the log profile, so it's gonna be great for color grading. But again, if you don't have a pro phone, this isn't available, or you don't want huge file sizes, or it's just a home video, make sure this is turned off. Then enhanced stabilization, I keep this off. It's really, really good for action sports, but it will crop in. As you can see here, it's at 2.8K instead of 4K. I think standard stabilization is great, or you can get a DJI Osmo Mobile just to make sure you have the smooth buttery shots. So keep that off. Then make sure we have 4K 24 or 4K 30 in the top left corner, depending on which one you decided before. If you're filming for social, make sure you're filming vertically. If you're filming for YouTube, podcast, literally anything else, rotate your phone into the horizontal position. At this point, you can press and hold down to lock exposure. You can also adjust exposure a little bit more. Here on the left, you can go up and down. I really like locking my focus if I want to make sure it's nailed on a specific subject. The autofocus also works great too. And then you're going to want to keep your phone level. You can see here in the middle, there's that level adjustment. Once it's level, the indicator will show up and then disappear. You can also use your rule of thirds to make sure that your subject is either in the center or on one of those intersecting points as well. And the very last thing before you hit record, this seems like a no-brainer, but I've seen it happen again and again, even to myself. Make sure you clean off the lenses. Microfiber cloth, your shirt, whatever works. Sometimes there's just a cloudy film that builds up as it's in your pocket and gets dirty. Make sure that's clean, hit record, and you're ready to go. Now, if you want even more control over your settings, here are a few professional filmmaking apps that I'd recommend. The first one is Final Cut Camera. This one's made by Apple themselves, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you choose. So you can still have your ProRes or H.265 options, log, SDR, HDR, your resolution, your frames per second. As you can see here, we're in the log format. It also has a level, not only for side to side, but also level up and down. So you can see if you're directly locked in and the phone is completely centered. You can select the lens you're using. Something else I forgot to mention is the main camera lens, the 24mm, will be the highest quality. It's the best lens out of the three. You also have things like exposure adjustment, white balance locked in by Kelvin, your focus settings, your orientation locks, stabilization, tools, audio. I really like that it has the overexposure indicator and the focus peaking. We can dive into the Blackmagic camera app. So this gives you a vertical and a horizontal orientation. This is extremely helpful as a professional because you know what settings you want to change and you actually have control over them. Everything from lens selection, frame rate, shutter, aperture, ISO, white balance, tint, stabilization, focus, LUTs, grids, ratios, Kodak, resolution, color space, time code, flicker-free shutter, anamorphic desqueeze, audio settings. And if you want a full video about this app, it's awesome, so just let me know. Now, I'm assuming if you're watching this video that you do own an iPhone, and if you don't, then I'm not adding you to the group chat, but I still respect the decision. The nice thing is though, it doesn't matter what phone you have because I've created some minimal wallpapers that will look absolutely mint. You guys can check out the Colorway 2 or Grainy Bubbles wallpaper pack below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.